Hello everybody, Ghostblade 1062 here with another locomotive review. Today we will be looking at the second of ScaleTrain's Rivet Counter series ES44ACs in the new Canadian Pacific Kansas City scheme. This one being road number 9375, a former Canadian Pacific locomotive. And now we will begin the unboxing. Alright, taking a look at the box, we have this new custom design on the front of the ScaleTrain's Rivet Counter box, with the ScaleTrain's logo being on the left hand side here, in the black part, with the Rivet Counter logo being across the yellow line, and then the CPKC beaver logo with the three flags beneath being on the red part. This coloration is a simulation of the actual paint scheme of the locomotive as well. Here in the top right we see it is an HO scale locomotive, and in the bottom left here we have the ScaleTrain's website. On the bottom and top of the box we have the ScaleTrain's logo as well as their address and phone number and website. On the left hand side we have the ScaleTrain's logo, Rivet Counter logo, website, and HO logo, as well as an age restriction warning. While on the right side of the box we have a drawing of the locomotive itself. Here we also see that the locomotive is DCC and sound equipped with a lock sound decoder from ESU. It is a General Electric ES44AC from Canadian Pacific Kansas City. It is former CP unit number 9375, and it is ScaleTrain's product number SXT39927. And then on the back of the box we have some prototype history as well as a list of features, some information about ScaleTrain's as a manufacturer, and their contact information. And now, taking off the lid, first of all, we have our instruction manual, starting with an introduction, prototype information, cleaning and disassembly instructions, handling instructions, lubrication and operating instructions, decoder installation instructions, sound and volume. Then we have a function chart, as well as some detailed information about some of the functions. We have information about the ESU power pack, programming instructions, all in all, quite a lot of information. Here we also have in a list of CVs for the various types of horns and bells, as well as brake squeal and air dryer sounds. So all in all, quite the list. And feel free to stop at any point if you want to read any of this. But moving on, we have this tougher foam covering up the locomotive, which we have sitting in this clamshell. Oh. And taking a quick look underneath, we do not have any additional paperwork hidden underneath the foam, which some manufacturers do like to do. And now we have the locomotive in this clamshell with outer sleeve. Removing that gives us access to this little baggie of spare rotating bearing caps. And opening up, we can get a hold of our locomotive. And it does have truck immobilizers on it, so make sure to remove those when taking your locomotive out of the packaging to avoid the locomotive from tipping over and being damaged. And now we just got to get this foam taken out. That's piece number one. And this is something you want to be careful with doing to avoid damaging the handrails, as they are quite delicate. Okay, that's one side done. Now for the other side. Here we are, and here we have our locomotive. And now we can move on to the detail overview section of the video. Time to take a closer look at this locomotive. Starting at the front of the locomotive, here on the plow, we have our brake line and various other connecting hoses, which are all silver tipped, which above that we start to see our handrails, which are separately colored in white, which makes them stand out from the main red body. Then sitting at the top of the walkway here on either side, we have our ditch lights. Then on the nose here, we got our grab irons leading up to the top of the short hood. And beside that, our main headlights, followed by our short hood access door, which leads up into the cab. And then off to the side of that, we have a hatch which gives access to a first aid kit. Then, looking on top of the short hood here, we have two sand filler hatches, one on either side, which are surrounded by our separately colored separately fitted white grab irons. On the windows, we have separately fitted windshield wipers with grab irons above those. We have our backlit number boards. And looking into the windows, we can actually see into the cab. Now moving on to the side here, taking a bit of an angled view, we can see that these walkway steps are etched plastic and see-through. Looking at the side windows here, we can look into the cab. And this particular model does not have any sunshades above the window. But beneath the window, we have the road number being 9375, followed by the 3 flags, being Mexico, US, and Canada. Below that, we have the CP reporting marks, as this is a former CP locomotive. And we also have the ES44AC depiction here, telling us what kind of locomotive it is. Following along the side here, we get to our AC converter boxes. And we have our separately fitted handrails going along the side of the body. And I just need to switch my hold a bit. Here we go. We also have separately fitted grab irons going up to the roof from the walkway, as well as going up onto the higher walkway here. Looking down at the fuel tank, we have our fuel gauge here, as well as our fueling cap and emergency shutoff. Then on the side, we have our CPKC reporting marks, as well as the CPKC Beaver logo. And we have detail for the multiple access hatches, which is all molded in. And moving towards the back here, we have etched plastic grills, which you can see through. And our separately fitted brake wheel. Then, taking a closer look at the trucks, we can see that we have a rust paint on the wheels, as well as we have rotating bearing caps, as well as chain detailing and brake detailing. And we can see that brake and chain detailing, well, the brake and suspension detailing on the front truck as well. Now, looking at the back of the locomotive, we again have our airline and brake line hoses. We got our separately fitted handrails going up to the walkway. Then on the back center here, we have our CPKC logo and our road number 9375 on either side of the rear lights. However, where this locomotive differentiates from its counterpart 4805, the former KCS locomotive, is that we have rear ditch lights. We also have several warning labels along the back here, all of which are legible under proper magnification, which I unfortunately cannot get on my camera right now. Then, looking at the other side of the locomotive, we again have our handrails, which are separately fitted. We have the CPKC beaver logo and reporting marks. However, looking at the fuel tank, we do have something a bit different here. We again have our fuel tank hatch. We have our emergency shutoff and fuel gauge. However, here on the tank, we have two air reservoirs for the braking system of the locomotive. And we do not have the inverter box here. However, we do have a nice door here with molded in detail and a clear window, which you can see into, as well as wiper blades on the window. Now, taking a look at the roof of the locomotive, right on top of the cab here, we have our antenna arrays, followed by various access hatches, and our 5-chime horn here, which is then followed by our exhaust, and then our radiator fans, which these front fans are see-through etched plastic, and you can see the actual separately fitted fans in silver underneath. Now I want to take a closer look at the wheels here. As with 4805, I had a fair bit of overspray on the wheels. However, on this locomotive, it is far less, which is very nice. And now that we have gone over the details of the locomotive, we can move on to the rip track segment of the video. On to the rip track segment of the video. Here, we will go over the coupler height of the factory installed couplers. We will verify the wheel gauge with the NMRA standards gauge. And then we will install new KD number 158 magnetic knuckle couplers on the locomotive. So, to start off with, I'm going to check the wheel gauge, starting with the front truck. And all 3 axles are engaged. Now onto the rear truck. All 3 axles are also engaged. So right off the bat, all of our axles are good. Now to verify the height of the factory couplers. There we are, sitting nicely on the track. And our front coupler is sitting spot on. As is our rear coupler. So, right off the bat, the factory installed plastic couplers are engaged. But now we will move on to installing the KD number 158 magnetic knuckle couplers. So, carefully setting the locomotive in my cradle here. I'm gonna grab the new couplers. Here we are, that's the screw out. And here we have the coupler box, which just pops open like that. Come on. Here we go. That is that coupler out. So now I can install the new coupler. And personally, I will always stick by this. I prefer the European NEM shaft system, as the coupler switching is just so much easier to deal with. Okay, still sprung. Okay, coupler is in there nicely. Now to check the height of the coupler. Alright, the front coupler is in, and it's at proper height. So now we are ready to move on to the rear coupler. The screw is being a little troublesome. There we go. With how long these screws are, they're can be a bit of a pain to get out. Okay, that's the coupler out, and now for the spring. Here we are. That's that out. So now to put the new coupler in. And close it right up. That's this coupler box reassembled. Right, and the coupler is still springing nicely. And what you want to make sure you do is have your screw nice and firm, but don't tighten it to the point that the coupler locks up. So now we have the rear coupler in. And this one is sitting low. So I will have to make some adjustments there off camera. But after that, we will move on to the function test. Alright, time for the function test on our locomotive. Starting with function 0, the directional lighting. Function 1, the bell. Function 2 is the horn, coupled with the bell. Function 3 is the handbrake. Function 4 is the dynamic brakes. Function 5 is the DPU and class lights. Function 6 is the directional ditch lights. And these are not the flashing ditch lights. Function 7 is unassigned. And now function 8 is startup, which also turns on number boards and walkway and ground lights. Function 9 is the drive hold function. Function 10 is the independent brake. Function 11 is the radiator fans. Function 12, the headlight dimmer. Function 13 is the air dryer. Function 14, the number boards. Function 15 is the isolation switch. Function 16 is unassigned. Function 17 is the brakes, set and release. Function 18, the sanding valve. Function 19 is a short air let-off. Function 20 is the compressor. Function 21, the coupler clank. Function 21, the handbrake. Function 22, cab doors. Function 23 is the engine hood door. Function 24, the reverser center. Function 25 is the cooling shutters. Function 26, manual notch up. 27 is manual notch down. Function 28 engages the manual notching logic. Function 29 is load simulation. And finally, function 30 is the automatic brake. And that covers the 30 functions of the locomotive. And now I will take some time to run the locomotive in before we run it as part of a consist with a small grain train. Alright everybody, this concludes my review of the Scale Train's Rivet counter ES44AC in the Canadian Pacific Kansas City scheme, road number 9375. It was a very beautiful model. It runs very smoothly. I had no issues with consisting it to its counterpart. And by ways of detailing, it was very, very well done. Unlike its counterpart, it didn't have as much overspray onto the wheels, which was very nice, so that does make it a little bit better than its counterpart in my eyes. But all in all, a product I would highly recommend. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like or a comment, and subscribe for more model railroad content. Have a great day, everybody.